Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Tracy. So excited to create another avatar cosplay. My client requested a Ty Lee. She completely fell in love with the guitar and ink, so she wanted a Ty Lee custom. So I went to Fabscrap and I found the perfect shade of burgundy for Ty Lee's cosplay, and we were inspired by the beach episode with her like two-piece outfit she wore at the end of that episode when they were going to that Fire Nation party, and I recreated it, but it's a little bit more modern. The top is a little bit more cropped and the skirt is a little bit more high-waisted. As you can see, it's right here. I'm going to show you guys how I make the choker and her cuffs as well. I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial, and please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Start by making the top. So you want to just take your bust measurement and divide that number by 2 and add an inch. So I end up with 19 inches, and you want to just square that off and decide your side seam length. I decided I wanted mine to be 8 inches finished, and you want to multiply that number by 2 and add a ½ inch. So you end up with a 19 by 16.5 inch rectangle, and you want to fold it hot dog style and just pin that down, and you're going to take it to your sewing machine and sew that. And I used my overlock machine for this, but you can just use your regular sewing machine and do a straight stitch and then just do a zigzag stitch to clean finish your ends. After sewing the rectangle together, you want to turn it inside out so the seam is on the inside. For the back panel, we're pretty much doing the same thing, but we need this fabric to be stretchy and going around the body because somehow you need to get into this top. Start by folding it in half until you get a nice roll, and you're just going to use the same measurements as the front piece, but it's just going to be a little bit shorter across the bust. So the front bust was 19 inches, so the back you're going to just take away 4 inches because this fabric stretches, so it will stretch. And you end up with a 15-inch by 16.5 inch rectangle, and you fold right sides together and pin that seam and sew it down. Turn it right side out, and you want to grab your front piece and you're going to place right sides together. Pin your side seams together and take it to your sewing machine and sew a ½ inch. You can do this with your regular sewing machine. Like I said, I'm just using my overlock. For the tie on the top, I'm taking a ring, and you want to cut 2 circles that are slightly bigger than that. As you can see, you can also use a button, so just get like a big button or a ring like that and start basting at the edge of the circle, so like a 1/4 inch in, and just secure that end so it's nice and tight, and just continue basting all the way around the circle. After basting, you want to take your ring or your giant button and just place it in the center, and you want to just start pulling on that thread. As you can see, it starts to like wrap around the ring, so you're kind of covering this ring, and this method is called like a covered button with like the fabric, and I'm just using a ring because it's what I had, but a button works. So I'm just securing that into place and then just kind of sewing it down, and you get a really nice covered ring or button. For the ties on the bows, I cut out 2.5 inch wide strips that are about like 26 inches long, and then I just sew right sides together and turn it inside out, so I end up with like a 1 inch finish. And place your rectangle on your dress form or on your body, and then just slip one long tie through the top. As you can see, I was kind of struggling holding the phone and trying to do this at the same time, but I'm just like pulling it through the top, and then I literally just tie it. So you're just going to do a knot. It's going to scrunch up like that. So, and that's how it looks, and then I just cut the length of the ties. With the other tie, I'm just going to cut out 2 9-inch long pieces, and those are going to act as little like bow portions of the tie that it's going to be attached to the bottom of the covered button or ring. And that's what one side looks like all done, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You take the 9-inch piece and just fold it in half and just kind of scrunch it and just sew it right on the back of that button. Take the bow and just place it at the center of that knot so you don't see the knot underneath, and I'm just taking a needle and thread and just hand sewing it on. And I decided to add straps just because anything strapless is really annoying to keep up. So I'm just making spaghetti, and I make it about a 1/4 inch wide, and I have rings and slides. If you need an in-depth tutorial, I can link it. And I attached 2 rings, so 1 ring at the front and 1 ring at the back, and they're adjustable straps. And now it's time for the skirt. So this whole garment was just a series of like 3 rectangles, and I overlocked all the ends of this giant rectangle, which measured 50 by 45 inches, and 45 inches is the length, so use 50 for around the waist. And I'm just wrapping it around my desired waist. As you can see, it's like a sarong when you just wrap and tie it, but I'm pinning the back piece up and then just the front, I'm kind of twisting it. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but I'm just twisting it until I like the look of the drape, and I just pin it down. I'm happy how the chiffon is falling, and I just keep pinning just so I secure it. And then I just take the other side of the skirt. As you can see, I pinned it up, so I just take the other side and just also twist it. So the skirt's gonna just like wrap and tie with the waistband, so it's gonna be like a completely open skirt with like a really high slit when you tie it. And I'm just twisting it to where I like it, and since it's kind of hard to pin right above this because I want to secure the front part of the skirt first, I'm just grabbing my hair tie and just tying it so I can have those same exact like drapes on that side, and then I'm just pinning it up and out of the way. And I just take pins and start pinning all these pleats in place so everything's really secure, and I kind of went crazy with the pins just to hold these drapes in place because I loved how it looked. So I'm just doing that all the way around these pleats, and then I just start taking pins and start marking my waistline with them around the skirt. Once I get to the back of the skirt, I bring the other side down and then just place it right over that other piece, so it's gonna be like a wrap, and I just pin it in place. Next, I just kind of play with these drapes and just make sure it's like all smoothed at the very back. As you can see, I'm just smoothing it out so it lays really nicely. And then I just take more pins and just finish pinning the waistline and pinning all of those pleats down. After securing everything in place, I take some chalk and just mark on these pins so I can just mark in my waistline. I take it off the dress form and just bring the skirt to my sewing machine, and I just start doing a basting stitch right on those pleats. So just from the start and stop of those pleats, and I'm just sewing right on that chalk line, as you can see. After sewing down the pleats, I just take the skirt and I'm only going to leave a 1/4 inch seam allowance above that chalk line. After I trim down the waist, I overlock that. I take the jersey knit fabric and I start cutting out 4.5 inch strips that are about 36 inches long. And I cut out 2 of those, and then I place right sides together and sew 1 long strip. And I overlock all the ends so it's all clean. And then I just match up the waistline. So I just marked the side seam on the skirt and just matched up that seam to one of the side seams like so. And then I'm just gonna pin it together and take it to my sewing machine and sew 1/4 inch. After I sew a 1/4 inch, then I take the top of the waistband and fold the seam allowance down and then just place it right on top of that seam so it's covered, if that makes sense. It's like a binding. That's all pinned down, and you want to just repeat this to the rest of the binding, but it's going to be like sewn to itself. So you're just going to like fold the seam allowance towards the inside, and you're just going to do a top stitch on that and around the waist as well. So it's going to be a very clean tie. As you can see, I'm just sewing like really close to that edge and doing this all around the waist until I reach the other end of the tie. And the skirt is complete, so as you can see, it's just a wrap skirt. So just tying it on the side, and it looks really nice, and you have like an open slit. My client's pretty tall, so I just kept this length, and I just decided to fold the hem under a 1/4 inch and then just do a top stitch. So now that the garment's done, it's time for accessories. So I'm making the cuffs and the choker. So let's start with the cuffs. I cut out 2 6.5 by 6.5 inch squares, and I just folded this in half just because it's easier to cut like this. And After I cut out those squares, I fold the right sides together and then just pin everything and then serge that seam on both cuffs. After sewing the seam, turn it right side out so the seam is on the inside, and I want the seam exposed on the cuff, so I'm kind of placing that seam right in the middle, and then I'm facing right sides together, and then I'm just sewing that seam so it wraps around the wrist like that, and you just slip it on. I measured my neck and I got about 12 inches around the neck, so I cut out a 12-inch strip that's about 2¼ inches wide and then sewed right sides together, and I'm just turning it inside out. And after that, I placed that seam right in the middle again, and I just took it to an iron. Next, you want to just take an old necklace. That's just what I had on hand. I literally forgot to go buy a closure for this choker, but I figured out a way to make it work. So I took off that little clip, and on the extension chain, I just kind of removed that extension so I could use it. And then I attached it to the little clip. This was the pendant I found at the thrift store, and I couldn't find an exact like teardrop pendant Ty Lee wears, but this works. I liked it. And then I take each end of the choker and just fold it a 1/2 inch in and just pin it down, and I only sew 1/4 away from the edge, so I have like a little tunnel to feed my chain. I feed the chain through one side of the tunnel, and as you can see there's like this little ball on the end, so I just open that jump ring and remove that little ball. And then I just use the jump ring to connect one end of the chain to the clip, like so. I also used a bracelet, and I took off the extension chain as well, but I left like that little triangle piece because I thought that'd be nice for it to clip onto. So I'm feeding the chain through, as you can see, and then I'm just opening a jump ring and connecting it to that triangle. And that's how I made my own closure with the things I had, and it worked out great. So next we're gonna just mark the center of the choker so we can place our pendant there. I'm just using a pen and chalk to mark where I want the grommet to be, and I'm just using like a small grommet kit to put in this grommet. It was fairly simple. There's like a lot of YouTube tutorials on how to use your own grommet kit. I was just able to clip in the little pendant, and look how it turned out. I'm completely obsessed with this whole cosplay, and I can't wait for her to receive it. Thank you guys so much for watching.